Valorant, in general, is a game with pretty good balancing. While there are statistical anomalies, the game is balanced enough to where no agent seems too broken or no gun too strong. While there have been exceptions in the past, stuff that we'll have to talk about later, Riot is pretty quick to patch such issues out. But if something isn't broken in the sense of being too strong, Riot doesn't tend to give much needed life to Valorant's weaker options. Some stuff is just left under the rug when it's deemed too weak. And that's where our shining star of today's story comes in.
Ares.
This gun sucks. And not even in a kind of fun type of way. Alright, maybe it's a little fun, but I get the same type of fun using the Odin. And that gun is actually effective at what it's trying to do. The Ares is just a little bit too expensive for how abysmal the weapon tends to perform. If you're interested in this type of content, there's more on the way, so be sure to like and subscribe, and let's get into the why. A good way to quantify the worth of any weapon in Valorant and other FPS games is by using three basic principles: damage, handling, and application. Let's start with the easiest one to digest: damage. As a precision game, Valorant has very fast engagements, with the strongest guns in the game being able to eliminate opponents in just one hit. Any weapons that cannot do this have to fulfill a greater role, like high movement accuracy or RPM or other shenanigans. And even still, it needs to meet certain damage thresholds to stay competitive. The Ares somehow lacks in all of this in its own special way. I would equate the damage that the Ares puts out to a wet pool noodle. It's weak, slow, and the cleaning net is always more effective. 72 damage headshots at close to medium range is inherently fine, I suppose, since a gun with such a fast fire rate could be too effective if the number was bumped up a bit. Except, the Spectre exists, a gun that costs the same amount as the Ares, and for some reason, does more damage than the Ares at close range? Now, I'm no scientist, but these things are not shooting the same caliber of bullet, not to mention the Spectre's half the size. Sure, anything greater than 15 meters, the weapon performs numerically worse, but even this is a facade due to circumstances we'll talk about in a bit. But hey, it's an LMG, you're not meant to be aiming for the head. Okay, sure, but it doesn't exactly do great body shot damage. 30 damage per bullet makes this thing a 5-shot elim on paper, but this thing is just such a hassle to handle that you end up accidentally hitting a leg or two trying to hit your targets. And just one leg shot adds an additional bullet to your total, which just feels miserable. In past 30 meters, forget it. Even if you can wrangle this thing, its overall performance is still quite slow. Oh, and did I mention the Spectre somehow shoots faster than this thing? Ain't that the kicker? But hey, with poor damage, that must mean the weapon at least handles good, right? God no. Absolutely not. This weapon is the most inaccurate piece of garbage I've ever had the displeasure of putting my hands on. You move decently slow, which is fine. It's not even the slowest gun in the game, that role is actually delegated to the shotguns. But this weapon was graced with some of the worst accuracy in the game. Its first shot spread is a whopping 1 degree. Do you know what else in the game has a 1 degree first shot spread? The Marshall, fired from the hip. And at the very least, if that one hits, it does at least 100 damage. Anything past like 10 meters is a guessing game of precision if you're aiming for the head. Anything past 30 meters, you have a better chance of hitting the surrounding foliage than your target. Mind you, it is fully automatic, so you have plenty of bullets to shoot, but this thing kicks and shakes so much you'll run out of ammo before actually hitting anything. and it takes forever to get to the point where it stops kicking vertically and gets to the fun, accurate part. Half of your clip gone to waste shooting random bullets in random directions and hoping you aren't dead by this point, only to be greeted with still subpar damage. Oh, and mind you, this is all while you're standing still. You can crouch to make it a little better, but anyone with a decent gun is going to run you over. Even the classic can make this thing look like a fool, and don't you worry, of course the classic does more damage than the Ares, because what doesn't? Okay, whatever. Sure, the gun does no damage, and it has terrible accuracy, but maybe it has some secretly broken application that makes the gun super viable and broken. Well, it is the cheapest weapon with high penetration. Okay, well, it's the cheapest primary weapon with high penetration. Yep, despite every other flaw of this weapon, your whole benefit and now imminent goal is to spam through walls. And you could do that through a couple more walls that no other gun in its price range can do. Shoot, I forgot about this one. Yep, even this thing's one main benefit still somehow gets ruined by another weapon. The Sheriff is half the price of the Ares, has the same high penetration stat, and is way better than the Ares in an actual engagement. And it's half the price! Imagine, you get into the perfect scenario with the Ares. You have the entire enemy team through a high pen only wall, and you're about to let them have it, and a random Sheriff spam takes you out. Would you ever even consider picking up the Ares? Ever again? Valid tangent aside, sure, even if that spam does connect, what happens after you get 1 or even 2 kills through the wall? Hope that you don't get into an actual engagement? Even if you're purchasing this thing on an anti-eco, you're pretty screwed come the next round. You just have to hope you can eternally spam at people through walls, and hope that they aren't smart enough to not fall for the same gimmick twice. And yeah, you can bump up your effectivity by playing Sova or Fade to help make wallbanging easier by using your recon abilities, but unless you're playing on a Sense B site where that's like, I don't know, half the meta of that map, it's nothing more than a very cheap strategy on a not so cheap gun. Also, you could just try the same thing with the Sheriff. Why would you ever buy this thing? So how do we fix this? Well, you could make the weapon more accurate and even do more damage if you were feeling really feisty, but the funny thing is that Riot tried this already. Patch 4.0 removed the odd spin-up time that this weapon used to have, similar to the Odin in its current state. Alongside a solid fire rate buff, the Ares dominated the game for at least a solid week, causing absolute havoc for anyone playing ranked. And then they made it incredibly inaccurate and called it a day. So it's safe to say we should probably not make this thing super accurate, but I'd like for it to at least not feel horrible. If you really need to, you could drop the damage down so people aren't getting lasered from across the map, but I really don't think anything you do stat-wise is gonna make people prefer it over the Spectre in 99% of scenarios. And so, I propose we just make it cheaper. Maybe nerf the stats a tad if we want to make it like Stinger cheap, but around 13 to 1400 credits is probably a better fit for this thing. It's not nearly as versatile as the Spectre, and doesn't have the title for close range powerhouse as the Judge, so I think it should stop trying to compete in this price range. A cheap wallbang gimmick is fine if it doesn't cost the team's economy to attempt. Sure, maybe this will absolutely break the meta and I'm a dummy who doesn't know how to balance, and hell, maybe this weapon's currently fine. But as this weapon currently stands, I don't think it's in a good place right now. It's weak, hard to use, and incredibly gimmicky. Hey, you made it to the end of the video! Thank you very much for listening to me ramble about this silly digital weapon. And if you like content like this, or just Valorant in general, I got plenty more content ready to make stored in this noggin of mine. Be sure to subscribe to be notified when I upload, leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it, and let me know what you think of the Ares in the comment section below. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace!